Hi, I'm Dr. Patello, and welcome to the Diabetes Breakthrough. Normally, we might have an opportunity to meet each other, and we would be in a setting where we'd actually meet each other face to face. But right now, we're going through a little bit of a scary time, and it's still important to get this information out there. We know right now that people who have immune-compromised conditions, such like type 2 diabetes, are more susceptible to the coronavirus. So as a doctor, I want to get this information out to you. I think this is information that's important. So what we've decided to do is put this in a virtual setting versus us meeting one-on-one. So I hope you enjoy the information, and I think that this is information that could really make a big impact as far as your good health is concerned.
Well, when I was diagnosed with diabetes, my A1C was at 14.7. Actually, it was greater than 14.7.
I came to him because I am a diabetic, and my A1C was at a 13.
My blood sugars were running above 200. I was on two different medicines, glipizide and metformin.
When I met him, I felt like I was on my last leg. I was so tired. I was just exhausted every day when I get home from work. I didn't want to do anything.
I just feel like my energy level has really boomed since this program started for me.
One of the real benefits of the program is it's helped me identify those foods that drive my sugar up.
Where normally doctors have you increase medication, this is the first doctor that I've ever had where I decreased medication.
I am in the process of dropping all the meds that I've been taking.
I feel younger and stronger and healthier. And that's what I'm telling myself. I'm not only getting better health, but I'm getting younger.
I would say run to Dr. Patello. He has changed my life.
Come across Dr. Patello, I highly recommend that you guys take your time to join him, and you can reverse diabetes.
So let's get started this evening. You guys all came in to sign up for the best chocolate chip cookie recipe. Is that what you're all here for? That's what I signed up for, right? Samples, as many as you can, right? So let's talk about this. Just a show of hands, how many people in the room are diabetics? Just so I can get a sense. Just keep your hands up just so I can look around in the room, please. Okay, great. Be honest with me. How many people are really afraid of chocolate chip cookies? Afraid of them, right? So as we go through this evening, we're going to talk about a lot of misinformation that's out there. I think a lot of information that kind of keeps us stuck. I already asked you how many people were diabetics. One more time, raise your hands up. Okay, that's the vast majority of the room. Let's talk about this. How many people have been a diabetic, let's say for at least a year? Okay. How about before even being a diabetic, you were labeled something called a pre-diabetic? Anyone ever heard that before? Okay. How about being a diabetic 5 years? 10 years? 15? 20? 25? 30? Okay, 25. So this is my challenge for you this evening. Everything that you think you know about diabetes, just for tonight, I want you to forget what you think you know about diabetes. Because what's going to happen is this. If you think you know everything about diabetes and you come into the room, you're going to miss something. You're going to forget something. Who's willing to participate and do that with me? Good. Because I will tell you this. I think you're going to get something that you haven't heard beforehand. And for some of you, it actually may change the course of your health. So let's do this. Diagnosis day. I've been in private practice for 21 years. I know it doesn't look like that. Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. All right, 21 years. Do you believe that? I've seen thousands of patients. I really have had the pleasure of seeing thousands of patients. And generally speaking, when it comes to diabetics, this is kind of the story that I've heard over time. Maybe you haven't been to the doctor's office in a while. Maybe your wife tells you, I'm sick of hearing you coughing. You need to go down to the doctor's office. Maybe it's an insurance examination. And they tell you, we need to do an examination. Whatever the reason is, you haven't been to the doctor's office in quite some time, and you go into the doctor's office, and they say, Mrs. Smith, we haven't seen you in a while. And what are they going to do all over? Some blood work. You don't think anything about it. You're at the doctor's office. You're going to go ahead and do the blood work. A few days later go by, and you get a call from the doctor's office. And the doctor's office says, Mrs. Smith, we need you to do what? Come back in. and you say, uh-oh, something's up. Something's going on. And you start going through your mind. You're saying, well, what could it be? What could it be? And all these different scenarios run in. Now, some of you have been a diabetic for quite some time, so maybe you were working. Guess what you got to do? You got to rearrange your schedule. Usually the doctor's office are overbooked, overcommitted. You're rearranging your schedule. You got to get down there. So what you do is you either have to take the whole day off from work or half a day. But you get down to the doctor's office. And wouldn't you know, for the first time ever, the 91 freeway, no one's on it. And you get to the doctor's office an hour early. Guess who's running an hour and a half behind? The doctor's office. So you get there, you sit there, and guess what you do? You read People magazine, you read Oprah's magazine, Better Homes and Garden, you know which prince just left England and is now moving to who know where, you know what the baby's name, I mean, you've read it all. Finally, when they call you back, if you even meet with the doctor nowadays, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, you get back over to the doctor's office, they tell you to sit down and they say, Mrs. Smith, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're what? Diabetic. And they write you out your first prescription. And it usually starts with an M and it ends with an N. Guess what that is? Metformin. Did you guys all go to the same doctor? Problem number one, write this down. Why were you all prescribed the same medication? Metformin. I mean, you guys shouted that out. That was almost in unison. So you think to yourself, man, I didn't know I had diabetes. Or maybe at that point, you'd already been told, well, a while ago you were pre-diabetic and now you're officially diabetic. Whatever the reason is, then you start going through your mind, oh, it must have been that chocolate chip cookie I had before we had that blood work, right? It was the holidays. It was all the stuff I was eating during the holidays. Doctor tells you you're a diabetic. And you start thinking, oh, I guess, that kind of makes sense. Sometimes I have some numbness and tingling in my feet. Sometimes my vision's a little blurry. And you say, well, I'm a little bit overweight. See how we start using what? Excuses. And then you use this one. You say, it runs in my family. If you're Latino, 50% of the Latino community has it, right? African Americans, 50% of the African American community has it. And then you start thinking it's in your genes, right? It's in those genes. Guess you should have wore your Jordache jeans, not the Levi jeans, right? But this is what starts going through our mind. We start coming up with these excuses, right? So this is what the doctor's going to tell you. And please write this down. Diet, exercise, and lose what? Wait, are you sure you guys didn't go to the same doctor? Diet, exercise, lose weight. You saw some patients talk about our office. Did all of them look like they needed to lose weight? But you all got the same recommendation, diet, exercise, weight. So here's the second problem when it comes to managing diabetes. Everybody gets the same what? Recommendation. You got the same recommendation as this nice gentleman, as this nice gentleman, as this nice lady. Diet, exercise, lose weight. And that's what they're going to do. Anyone ever hear the term manage and control before? So they're looking to manage and control this disease. Doctor tells you, come back in 6 months. Okay, 6 months go by. You come back in, guess what they're going to do again? Lab. They're going to grab that arm, right? They're going to do lab work. How are those labs looking? Better or worse? Generally, worse. Doctor says, I don't know if you're following my plan or not. And you think to yourself, you start scratching your head, what kind of plan was it? Diet, exercise, lose weight. Doctor said, these numbers aren't looking any good. We're going to have to increase that metformin. Maybe now you're taking 1,000 milligrams in the morning, 1,000 milligrams in the evening. By the way, that's maximum dosage, if you can even tolerate it. Numbers are looking worse. Doctor says, hey, we're going to have to increase and give you another medicine, maybe glipizide, maybe glyburide, right? Oh, by the way, your blood pressure numbers, not looking so good. We got to give you your second blood pressure medicine. Your cholesterol's not looking good. Maybe we've got to give you your second cholesterol medicine. Some of you, I guarantee right now, prior to ever being diagnosed as a diabetic, you're already on blood pressure medicine and high cholesterol medicine. And some of you are shaking your head because that was you. Some of you don't even realize that you were already a diabetic prior to being diagnosed as a diabetic. And if you don't fall asleep in about 10 minutes, we'll explain why that's happening. You're already diabetic. So the doctor tells you at this time, you got to follow these instructions. Diet, exercise, lose weight. Have you heard of these recommendations beforehand? Okay, let's dispel a really, really big myth. If there was a fancy diet that would make diabetes go away, would you be here? No. Because some of you right now in this room, you've tried all the diets in the world, right? You've tried the keto diet, the paleo diet, remember the grapefruit diet? Remember that one? Told you I've been around for a long time. Right? So the doctor says, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to send you to a nutrition class. You say, okay. Anyone ever go to those nutrition classes beforehand? Generally speaking, those nutrition classes, they're in a what? Open forum. That's a problem. Why are you getting the same recommendation that this nice gentleman got? Why are you getting the same recommendation that she got? Why are you getting the recommendation that he got? Everybody's getting the same size recommendation. Right now, guess what they're telling you to avoid? Carbs. Listen, I've been at this for a long time. Before carbs, right, they used to tell you avoid the S word. Anybody remember what the S word was? Sugar. If you're going to have sugar, make sure it's what? Sugar-free. Before the S word, it was the F word. I say F word around my household. My kids look like, oh, it was fat, right? If you're going to have fat, have what? Fat-free. Think about it this way. Avoid carbs. Whether you believe in God or not, did you know carbs are fruits and vegetables? Right? But yet we have these crazy diets that are going on, right? Avoid all what? Carbohydrates. I'm sorry, that's not how we were meant to be. Anyone ever remember the Atkins diet? Eat as much meat as you want, right? Mm-hmm. Right? The only reason I mention this right now is I want you to really think about it. My job tonight is to kind of talk about all the myths that are going on out there. You know, it wasn't too long ago that it was thought that we could eat eggs. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot. Can this week we eat eggs again? What about steak? Is steak good this month or is it not good this month? Can I have steak? I want you to start thinking about this. This one-size-fits-all approach isn't working. But you went to the nutrition class. You're doing the best that you can, right? So you try to diet, you try to exercise. Oh, by the way, if you even have any energy, most diabetics are complaining that they don't have what? Energy. This disease robs you of energy. It's really hard to work out when you don't have a lot of energy. But you're trying. Part of it is you're also shrugging your shoulders and you're saying, man, what else can I do? You go back to the doctor's office. Doctor tells you, I don't know what you're doing, but you're not following my recommendations. If you don't follow what we're talking about, eventually we're going to have to give you what? Insulin. And you say, uh-oh. By the way, how they're managing and controlling your disease is by numbers. Do you know that? Because if you're from this point to this point, they give you this medicine. If you're from this point to this point, you get this medicine. If you're from this point to this point, then you get insulin. Some of you were put on insulin really, really early. You know why? Because your A1C was so high. Some of you, you've been a diabetic for a long period of time. See, this disease, we don't always have to feel stuff, and it's just building up in the background. But you go back to the doctor's office, and this is what happens. Doctor says, John, great job, high five. Your numbers are looking better. And you think, I don't know what I did any different. I still had that chocolate chip cookie before you did my blood work. And he says, your A1C is looking better. And you scratch your head and you're like, I don't know what I did. Right? I want you to think about this. If you were really getting better, shouldn't they be taking you off of the medicines? They can't. The medicines is what's doing what? Managing your disease. See, there's a false sense of security that when it comes to diabetes, and I really want you to pay close attention to this. Sometimes they can change the medicines. You were on 3 medicines, and now you're on 2 medicines, and you think, well, I cut down a medicine, but you don't realize that they added one of the medicines, they changed it, and it's just a stronger medicine. Right? I had a patient recently tell me, well, I used to be on insulin, but now they put me on Victoza and Genumet. They both do the same thing as insulin. You just don't realize now you're on 2 different types of insulins. but she's not on insulin, right? So I'm putting this out there because I want you to think a little bit differently. Because, oh shoot, how should I put it? Anyone ever hear the definition of insanity? Absolutely. Listen, I want to be really clear and upfront with everyone tonight. I wish the medicines were working. I wish they were. You wouldn't be here, and I'd be okay with that. But they're not. So I want you to think about this. If this disease would just go away with a fancy diet, that would be great. But every year, or every few years, it's not every year, but every few years there's a new what? Crazy fad diet. Every year, every decade goes by. And what are we always looking for, right? We're always looking for that magic bullet, that thing that's just going to make everything go away. Things can go away, and we're going to talk about how that can happen, but we have to understand what's really happening with this disease. I meet with a lot of diabetics, and for a lot of period of time, they don't even know what diabetes is. By the way, this is half of the side effects of metformin. Half. Every single prescription we're on, and again, I want to be really, really clear about that. I wish the prescriptions were working, but every single prescription has side effects. You ever open up one of those from the bottle, like the little papers that are inside of it? What's that thing called when you open origami? You ever see those things? It looks like the Encyclopedia Britannica. I know I'm showing my age again. Some of you have no idea what an Encyclopedia Britannica is, right? That was before Google, okay? You open that thing up. One side effect after another side effect after another side effect. How about this? You ever watch those commercials, those diabetic commercials? First few seconds within the commercial are all the great things, right? And the last 2/3 of it is one side effect after another side effect after another side effect. So I know why you're here. Let me share why I'm here. Because of her. That lady was my best friend. That lady was my mom. Maria Milena Miguel Botello. For those of you that can do math quickly, she passed away, she was 54 years of age. She was a type 2 diabetic. That's too young. That's way too young. So my job tonight is this. I'm not Pfizer, I'm not Merck, I'm not Abbott Lilly. This is a grassroots effort. The information I'm going to share with you tonight, I didn't have this information beforehand, and we should have never lost her. Let me tell you a little bit about her, because I think she was a kind of special lady. We come from a very, very small family. Actually, I'm first generation. English is not my first language. She came to this country in a very, very famous boat that's parked in Long Beach. Anybody know what that boat is? Queen Mary. Yeah. She came here, what was she looking for? The American dream. And unfortunately, shortly after moving to this country, didn't happen. So it was her mom, her dad, her sister, and her brother. So it was a family of 5. And unfortunately, shortly after coming to the United States, she lost her dad. So she's the oldest in the family, right? So guess what she has to do? Take care of the family. She had to go work. Couldn't speak English, right? So she found the first job that she could, her and her mom. And she worked at a sweatshop. She actually worked in a man's position. And the reason why is because she just asked, I need a job. I'll take any job that you have. And for the whole time that she worked in that company, she always was the only person ever, only female to ever work in her division. So she was a hard worker. One of the things about her that I don't have was she had an amazing ability to make people laugh. I wish I had that ability. She just was a natural storyteller, but a joke teller. She really was. I have no funny bones in my body. I try to tell jokes, but my kids always laugh at me and they say that's a dad joke, right? But she was just one of those people that just could make you laugh. I think one of the really cool things about her, do you guys ever remember that, what was that show, I Love Lucy? You remember Desi Arnaz? Yeah. Remember that laugh he had? She had the same laugh. Like she wouldn't even get to the punchline. She'd start laughing and you would do what? You would start laughing too. She was the godmother to 27 children. She's a pretty special lady. I want to talk about some things. Remember how I told you I want you to forget everything that you know about type 2 diabetes? Well, I want to share some things with you that's really not super comfortable for me to talk about, even though I've talked about it so much. I'd come back from school, and I was away at school, and we went out for lunch. And it was a regular weekend. I'm sure it was like a Saturday. And my mom used to have like a big purse. Did any ladies have big purses? I know one of you does. Anybody? No. Oh, winner, winner. You get an extra chocolate chip cookie. Can I borrow that for a second? Ooh, that's a good one. I promise I won't open it in front of anyone. So she had one of these big purses like this. Men, we have toolboxes. Ladies, they have big purses. Yes, I don't mind holding it. My wife has given me hers a few times, okay? So she had a purse just like this, and I remember we sat down for lunch, and she put it on the table, no different than it would probably have been any other day. And she was rummaging through her purse, and I remember her doing this. She put down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 prescriptions. 6. Just like that. I didn't know she was on any. And I was taken back. Now, she pulled it out because we were out to lunch because she had to take it with what? Food. So I'm like, Mom, here she is. She's my best friend. You're supposed to tell your best friend everything, right? Why didn't she want to tell me? Because she didn't want to worry me. I said, Mom, what's going on here? She says, don't worry. You know everybody in our family gets it. See, in my nationality, 50% get diabetes. That's false, by the way. But we're always told that, right? I said, what's this? She said, you know my English, you read it. Starts with an M, ends with an N. What was it? Metformin. Think that thing's been around for a long time? She said, doctor says I have to take that with food. I said, what's this next one for? She said, that's for my blood pressure. But I was already taking blood pressure medicine before. The doctor told me I was pre-diabetic, but I had high blood pressure. I said, what's the next one for? She said, well, I was already on this one, but it's just I have a little bit of cholesterol. A little bit of cholesterol? A little bit. See how we use words like this? We minimize it, right? We minimize it. A little bit of cholesterol. But she said, I was on that before. I was on that before. So for some of you who were already on these things beforehand, it was just like her. I said, what's the next one for? She said, my stomach's really been bothering me. It's to help me with my stomach. Where was that coming from? The metformin. I said, Mom, what's the next one for? She said, my joints, they hurt all the time. Where was that from? The statins. But you know what she said? She said, well, you know I'm not getting any younger, right? I must be just getting old. Again, what are we doing? We're building up excuses. What's the last one for? She said, the doctor said that's to protect my kidneys. Why do we got to worry about protecting kidneys? Because we're worried about the side effects from the medicines, and we're worried about this condition and what it does to your kidneys. Just like that, 6 prescriptions. Just like that. November 21st. Anyone ever been to the East Coast? I'm originally from the East Coast. You know if you've been in the East Coast, November, it's either raining, cloudy, or snowy, or all 3. November 21st, it's about 4 o'clock in the morning. All I remember is a knock on the door, and it was my mother's sister. I opened up the door, and she dropped to her knees, and she said she's gone. The night before, I spent about an hour with my mom. Never would have guessed, never would have known she was going to pass away that evening. She had no tachycardia, she had no labored breathing, she had no signs, no symptoms of a massive heart attack that was about to happen. None. Just like I'm having a conversation with you, with you, with you. No signs, no symptoms. She lived 4 houses from the hospital, 4. From her front door, she could see the hospital. So when it happened, just like this, I cannot tell you how many people at the funeral said, I had no idea your mom was what? Sick. I can tell you right now, and if you think about it, you know people who you're like, wow, I never knew they were what? Sick. Because this disease, unfortunately, it's silent. It's known as a silent killer for a reason. See, the problem is people look at this disease one of 2 ways. And I'm not going to ask you, because this is something you just need to ask yourself. You can look at this disease as a nuisance, or you can look at this disease as something that can take your life. It will do it one of two ways, unfortunately. For our family, it was quick, right? For other people, it's slow, body part by body part, over time. Statistically speaking, if you have this disease, it shortens your life by 15 years. And when that stuff happens, this is what happens. These are my 4 boys. They never met their grandmother. Now I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, because some of you need to hear this. I don't show you this picture for your sympathy or empathy. I show it, and it's hard for me to show it because some of you need to hear this. Some of you do, because some of us were almost conditioned to think that this problem's no big deal. Anybody have boys? Grandchildren? Anybody have grandchildren? Great-grandchildren? She never got the chance. This disease robbed her of the opportunity for her to go to their baseball games, their football games, their swim matches, their hockey matches. I mean, you name it, they're in it. You name it, they're in it. This one right here has her green eyes and her sense of humor. And every once in a while, he'll look at me and he'd tilt his head just like my mom used to do. And he'd say, "You're thinking about her, aren't you?" I get goosebumps when I tell you this story. And he says, "You're thinking about her." And I said, "Yeah." And he'd say, "I wish I'd met her." And I say, "You bet I wish you met her too." She was 54 years of age. I really, really want to be clear. I'm not telling you this for your sympathy. I'm telling you because some of you need to hear this tonight. I wish I knew then what I know now. Do I think she'd still be around? Absolutely. Without question. What we know now and what we do in our practice, and practice is similar to ours, she'd be around. I firmly believe that. So like I said, I'm not Merck, I'm not Pfizer. This is a grassroots effort, right? How did we get this way? Did you know today's what, Wednesday? Did you know more people were diagnosed as being a diabetic today than yesterday? The overall number of people today were diagnosed. Tomorrow's Thursday, right? Last I checked. More people, the quantity of people, number of people diagnosed as diabetes is going to be greater, and it's going to be greater on Friday. Is there something wrong with that? It won't be Saturday and Sunday, and the only reason why is because the doctor's offices are closed. Although you do get diagnosed at the hospital, so when you go in for that emergency visit, right? We had a patient, true story, honest to goodness. He found out the day he was a diabetic was the day he died. The day he died. Now, it was a true miracle, true miracle. They were able, they pronounced him dead, but then he resuscitated. It was unbelievable. They were doing the discharge paperwork. They informed him, "You're a diabetic." He had no idea. No idea. Went back to his doctor's office. He said, "Well, you know, you were pre-diabetic." Ooh, pre-diabetic. Interesting. So how did we get this way? How come more people get diagnosed every single day? How about this? The FDA is warning us. Did you know that? It's their job, their responsibility. You guys have heard of the FDA, right? Right? They're warning us. They're warning us about the drugs. They're warning us about these conditions. But too many of us, what do? Bury our head in the sand. Because nobody likes to think about uncomfortable things, right?
This is an important type 2 diabetes warning. If you or a loved one took Invokana or other inhibitors for type 2 diabetes and suffered ketoacidosis, kidney damage, or other complications, call 1-800-BAD-DRUG now. You may be entitled to compensation. The FDA has warned that Invokana and other inhibitors taken for type 2 diabetes may lead to ketoacidosis, which may lead to kidney failure, hospitalization, coma, and death. Call 1-800-BAD-DRUG now for a free confidential consultation.
Anyone ever see those commercials beforehand? Some yes, some no. You know, they have an interesting time of day they usually show them. It's usually at night. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Any idea why that's happening?
Everybody's up.
Everybody's up. Did you know, on average, statistically speaking, 45 to 55% of diabetics at some point is going to suffer with insomnia. So when you can't sleep at night, what do? Watch TV, turn the clicker on. How many people have ever, I'm not saying every single night, but at some point, you've gone through insomnia. Yeah. You know, there's one simple test that your doctor could run to figure out why the insomnia is happening, and they never run it. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. This is the third leading cause of death, and it's underreported in the United States. Underreported, third leading cause. My mother's death certificate does not say diabetes. It says what? Heart attack. I love participation, so you're going to do me a big favor. I'm not saying that you have it now, but at any point in time since you've been a diabetic, if you've had any of the following symptoms, I just want you to do me a favor. I want you to raise your hand. And if you're holding your hand for a little while and it gets a little uncomfortable, just put your hand underneath it, okay? Fatigue. Keep them up, okay? Fatigue, increased thirst, headaches, trouble concentrating, blurred vision, frequent urination, insomnia, weight loss, weight gain, infection, slow healing cuts, nerve damage, body temperature changes. Men, don't raise your hand for this one. Erectile dysfunction. I'll tell you this, though. Can't tell you how many times I see it with patients in my office. Stomach intestinal issues, chronic constipation or chronic diarrhea, kidney damage, amputations, liver damage, heart disease, cancer. You have 4 times the risk. Keep your hands up just so I can see how many have had this. 4 times the risk of cancer if you're a diabetic. Heart disease, 90% the risk of heart disease. Alzheimer's, type 3 diabetes is Alzheimer's. Keep your hands up just so I can see. That's everybody. See, here's the thing that tricks us about this disease. I don't feel anything right now. So we think, pain, problem. No pain, no what? No problem. Because I'll tell you right now, it's hard for you to gauge where your diabetes is. Because some of you right now, and I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, some of you don't even check your blood sugars anymore. All right? Why would I check? I don't want to know the answer.
Right, that's true.
And then you justify it and you said, oh, I know when it's high. I know when it's low. Do you think my mom knew that it was high or low? No. And that's what's deceiving about this disease. And that's what's deceiving about all those things. So here's the catch. If you raised your hand for any of those, you have diabetic complications. You do. You may not be experiencing them right now, but you have diabetic complications. So why does this keep happening? We're going to go back to that. Did you know right now the United States consumes 50% of all of the medicines produced in the world? 50%. So I guess that means we've got 50% of the population of the world, right? Nope. Where are we? 5%. 5% of the population, 5% of the population takes 50% of the meds. Do you think we have easy access to prescriptions in this country? Yeah. You bet. You bet. Really easy, right? Did you know we spend more money on healthcare than any other country in the world? Right? More money on healthcare. It's not even a close second. So if we're taking 50% of all the meds in the world, that must mean we're really healthy, right? No. So where do we rank? How about this one? 47th. 47th. There are third world countries that I cannot pronounce nor spell that are doing a better job than we're doing. I just mentioned to you, we spend more money than anybody else does. Anybody else does on healthcare. But what are we spending it on? That week-long hospital stay when you have that heart attack, right? We spend what? Healthcare, the healthcare model in this country, I'm sorry. And I want to be really clear. I'm glad I live in the United States. Thank God if I got hit by a bus or something tragic like that, we can go for emergency care. But the model that's set up right now, it's not set up to prevent diseases, not chronic diseases. Diabetes, where is it going? Like this. Heart disease, where is it going? Like this. Right? Cancer, where is it going? Like this. So let's talk about some of these pharmaceutical companies. Anyone ever heard of GlaxoSmithKline, Pfizer, Abbott Lilly, Eli Lilly? Yeah. 3 billion, 2 billion, 1.5 billion. By the way, that's not profit. That's a check that they wrote. Why would they write a check? Because they didn't want to go to court. Anyone ever hear of Avandia? Yeah, some of you nodding your heads. So why did they write out a check so they wouldn't go to court? Because there were civil charges of paying kickbacks to who? Physicians. Making false and misleading statements. See, they were willing to write out that check because if they knew they went to court, they were going to have to write a check a lot what? Bigger. So think about this. If you're willing to write a check for $3 billion, you must make a lot more than $3 billion, right? Diabetes is a $1 trillion industry. Trillion. That's a lot more zeros than billion. So think about this. If they're willing to do that, you think they're willing to look at figuring out how to get rid of this problem? No. Did you know right now, and I'm going to scare some of you, but you all probably know it. You know you're being profiled as a diabetic? You don't want to believe it, but it's true. You're like, no, I shut off Siri. I know I did. But she's still listening. You're being profiled. I'll prove it this way. I won't go into all the rabbit holes, right? But you ever get that notification? Your prescription is ready? Prescription's right. They know when your prescription's due. They know when you need to refill it. They know if you filled it. Think about that for a second. This is big business. There are a lot of great physicians that are out there. A lot of great physicians who have gone into medicine, into healthcare to help physicians. But I want to tell you, things have kind of changed over the last few decades. Do you know right now, most medical schools are backed by pharmaceutical companies? Did you know right now in medical schools, they're training physicians how to do a physical examination in 8 minutes. When I was in school, it was an hour and a half. Right? So you tell me, has the body gotten that much easier over the last 2 decades? Nope. It's just they can't spend that much time with patients. I'm not going to name the medical group, but it starts with a K. I didn't say to say that out loud. Naughty you. Naughty you. I had a patient come into my office, and she belongs to that medical group that'll go nameless right now. And she said, I was at my doctor's office, and they were running behind, and they said, I couldn't ask any questions today. I had another patient that same week, right? Not the same office, but another office, and they said, the doctor told me I could only ask one question today. Why? Because they were running behind. I've heard of doctors' offices, they've had to remodel. Do you know why they had to remodel? Opening up the waiting area. This is where I really think the problem is. An article came out, it's almost a year now. You can't Google it, you can Yahoo, but you can go to Google and then find it on Yahoo. Actually, Yahoo came out with it. And what it did was it kind of blew a whistle on politicians. Did you know the number one backer of politicians in this country is guess who? Pharmaceutical companies. Number one. If you don't believe me, go home and go double check. Number one. So I got a question for you. If you're slipping something in my back pocket over here, go ahead and slip something. You think I'm going to make things a little bit easy for you? Yes. Article 6 months ago, New York Times. You can check this when you go home. Largest cancer research center in the United States is in New York. The head of research had to step down. Why? Kickbacks. It's big business. It's big business. You answer that question so very well. Definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over and over again. Exactly. You know the recommendation my mom's doctor told her? Diet, exercise, lose weight. You know what I told her? Because I didn't know back then. Mom, you need to make sure you're going to what? Diet, exercise, lose weight. You know what I told her for lunch that day, what she should get? A salad. Why? Because my brain went automatically into diet, exercise, lose weight, and it's not working. It's not working. We're going to talk about why that's happening. So diabetes, what is diabetes? Anybody dare to grab the clicker and explain what diabetes is? Huh? It's a pain in the you know what, right? Most people have been told diabetes is what? What's not working? Yeah, your pancreas, right? Your sugar in the blood. So some variation of that. So what I want to do is I want to spend a little bit of time on what really is diabetes. So, well, I'm not going to take any assumptions on my part, but when we talk about eating, whether it's that chocolate chip cookie whether it's the steak, whether it's an egg, whether it's some fruit, whatever you eat, it gets broken down in your body into something called what? Glucose, right? No matter what you eat, it's got to be broken down. It gets broken down into a macromolecule because your body needs to break that food down, right? I want you to think of it this way. Your car needs what to drive? Gasoline. Your body needs gasoline, and it's called what? Glucose. Without glucose, guess where your body goes? Right? So remember how we talked about number one symptom most diabetics have is what? Fatigue. That's because the glucose is sticking inside the what? The blood vessels. How do we know that? When you prick your finger, for those of you who are still pricking, right? And you check, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's 300. That means the glucose is stuck in there, right? So we're going to talk about why that's happening. So whatever you eat gets broken down into something called glucose, and it stays inside of your blood vessel. Now, your body knows that glucose inside your blood vessel is not a good thing, so it wants to get it out of the blood vessel, and your pancreas produces a hormone. Write this word down, hormone. Really, really important. There will be a quiz later, and if you don't pass, you don't get to have dinner. Just kidding. All right? So your body produces a hormone called insulin, and your pancreas makes it, right? And then insulin will bind with glucose. It's like a lock and key. And what will wind up happening is this, that lock and key happens, and then you're allowed to leave the blood vessel, and it goes to what? Your cells. Your body is made up of what? Trillions of cells. So if the glucose goes to the cells, then the glucose level does what? Comes down. So if you're a non-diabetic, how your body normally works is this. You eat something, your body produces insulin, the insulin binds with glucose, and it goes in your cells, and everything's happy. That's not what works with a diabetic. A diabetic, what will wind up happening is this. You eat something, stays in your blood vessel, and then for some reason, it's not getting to the cells. So write this down. Diabetes is a cellular disease. Diabetes is a cellular disease. So think about it this way, and maybe some of you will remember from your chemistry classes in high school. Insulin and glucose, right? I just told you it needs to go to the cell. It will go through to the cells through something called insulin receptor sites. They're like doorways. That nice gentleman that just came in through the door right now, this door opened up, right? Watch what I'm going to do right now. See how it's opening up? So if insulin and glucose are doing what they're supposed to do, and these doorways are open, it comes right into the cell. Everything's hunky-dory. But you have a cellular disease. Something is actually blocking the door. We're going to talk about all the different reasons why things are getting blocked. Because most of you, I guarantee you, prior to coming in tonight, you thought this disease was a disease of what you were putting in your mouth. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. Now, let's talk about a big myth. Ready? You did not get diabetes because of what you ate. There are people who are walking around, they eat what they want, they drink what they want, they smoke what they want, and guess what they don't have? Diabetes. Right? We know people like that. Then we have these poor other people who are walking around, they're skinny like this, they're watching what they eat, they're eating salads every single day, and they're a raging diabetic. Right? Something's not right if we're thinking about it, right? So what's happening is you have a cellular disease. Diabetes is a cellular disease. Something is blocking the doorway. We'll use the example, that gentleman with the blue shirt. We'll use this nice gentleman right here, and we'll use you. If the three of you guys were behind that door, blocking the door, it's going to be hard for me to just open that door and walk through it, right? Yeah. That's what diabetes is. Something is blocking the doorway to the cells. So this is what happens. Your body then says, hey, I need to get more people on this side of the doorway so we can what? Push the door open. So your body produces more what? Insulin. There's one simple test that your doctor could run to let us know whether or not your pancreas is producing enough insulin, and they never check. Why would they? You'll have this for the rest of your life. That's what diabetes is, right? Some of you right now have been told, you'll have this, you'll have it for the rest of your life. If you keep listening to what they're telling you, you will, right? So your body continues to produce insulin because it wants to try to open up the doorway, right? But something's blocking. So what winds up happening is this. Your blood sugar keeps going up, your blood sugar keeps going up, And this is what they say. We got to put you on prescriptions, right? And those prescriptions will force your pancreas to produce more what? Insulin. Glipizide, glyburide. Anyone heard of those before? Invokana, Farxiga, Genumet. And then eventually you have to do what? Insulin. The more insulin you're making your pancreas either produce naturally, synthetically, or exogenous, which means you injecting yourself, you're going to become more what? Insulin resistant. Isn't that interesting? So the things that we're taking are keeping us what? Insulin resistant. Think about that for a second. Now I want to be really, really clear. None of you are my patients, so none of you can just get off of these medicines, okay? Are we really clear? But think about it this way. If the medicines were working, would you be here tonight? No. I guarantee you, I know right now some of you have earnestly tried dieting. You've tried exercising. You've tried making changes to your diet. And guess where your blood sugar goes? Up and down, up and down. Why is it going up and down? Because something is blocking the doorway. Does that make sense? If we don't figure out what's blocking the doorway, what are we left with? Diet, exercise, and lose weight. How's that working out? So let's talk about this, and we'll talk about it in just a few minutes. If you diet, if you exercise, if you watch what you eat for a period of time, you can drop your blood sugar down for a period of time. But as soon as you stop dieting, guess what's going to happen? It's going to go right back up.
Why do you think that there are almost 60 million Americans who are pre-diabetic who aren't taking it seriously?
Because they feel okay now. When it finally hits you, it's too late.
Do you remember the day it hit you?
The day I was shown the hemodialysis unit, I just looked at the machines and I'm like, not me. You know, this can't be happening.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about. You're a brave, brave woman.
I look at my body and I just see what it's been through, and it's just so shocking, you know, to see have your foot gone and have your leg gone, and you're fine one day and then you just can't walk.
I like Dr. Oz. But he said something that was absolutely 100% incorrect. I don't know if you guys caught it or not. He said, why do you... Hard to hear. My apologies that it was a little hard to hear. So I'm going to say a little bit what he said right now. He said, why are 50 to 60 million Americans walking around pre-diabetic? So I want to dispel a myth for you. Write this down. There's no such thing as pre-diabetes. Anyone ever hear pre-pregnancy? Have you ever been pre-pregnant? Come on. You raised your hand for pre-diabetic. Maybe you're pre-pregnant. I'm trying to make light of a very, very heavy situation right now, right? 5.2 to 5.8 is normal blood sugar regulation. If you're above 5.8, my 10-year-old can diagnose you as being a diabetic, right? It's that simple. 5.2 to 5.8. I've been at this long enough that the pre-diabetes scale has changed over the last 10 years. It used to be here, now it's here. So let's just dispel this. There's no such thing as pre-diabetes, either 5.2 to 5.8. If you're above that, guess what you are? Diabetic. He said, why are 50 to 60 million Americans walking around pre-diabetic? They're not. They're walking around what? Diabetic. And she was one of them. Does she look like she needs to lose weight? No. Absolutely not. She said something, I know it was a little hard to hear, but she said something, she said, I was fine one day, and then I wasn't. My mom was fine one day and then wasn't. That's what this disease is. For her, For her, it didn't take her life like this, right? For her, it took what? Body parts. I know, again, I apologize, but there was a little bit of a machine noise in the background in that video. Could you hear that? Yeah. Anybody know what that is? Dialysis. Dialysis. She's probably going 3 days a week, 8 hours a day, and the days that she's not there, she's totally exhausted at home. So this disease does one of two things. It either takes us quickly or slowly over time. Slowly over time. I want to mention something about this pre-diabetes thing. Remember how I mentioned beforehand, I said some of you were already a diabetic prior to being diagnosed as a diabetic? If you were on blood pressure medicine and high cholesterol medicine, there's a good probability, statistically speaking, you're already a diabetic. Because this is what happens. Remember how I mentioned that there's the buildup of glucose in your blood vessels, right? And your body's like, I know it's really bad to have glucose inside my blood vessels. Why? Because it actually breaks down your blood vessels. See that lady, she doesn't have a limb, right? Because what winds up happening is this, your body will convert the glucose into 3 different things. Fat, triglycerides, and cholesterol. So think about it this way. If your body can't regulate blood sugar because the doorway is what? Blocked. It says, I got to do something, because if not, the blood vessels are going to what? Collapse. So it says, I'm going to convert it into fat, triglycerides, and cholesterol. So if your cholesterol is going up, what are they going to put you on? Cholesterol meds. If you've got cholesterol, triglycerides, and fat inside the blood vessels, where does your pressure go? Up. Think about a tube, right? You step on the tube, the pressure does what? A lot of people are walking around already a diabetic and they don't know. Statistically speaking, and you can look this up if you want, prior to the day that you were diagnosed as a diabetic, statistically speaking, you were already a diabetic 10 years prior. 10 years. 10 years. But this is what we do. We keep our fingers crossed. We say, my doctor just says as long as I have my A1C below 7. Some of you are thinking, man, I don't even remember the last time my A1C was below 7, right? Not realizing that complications with diabetes can happen anywhere above what? 5.8, right? But we've been taught and conditioned to think what? This problem is just a numbers problem. It's just a numbers problem. Maybe we should use a pencil for that A1C number and just cross it out, erase it. That's what we do. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's your fault. I think the model is conditioned that way. Because the model thinks that you're just going to have this for the rest of your life. The best that you can do is do what? Diet, exercise, lose weight. Can't change your genes, right? Yet they don't even realize there's a field in science called epigenetics. Listen, I can't change my genes, right? My mom had this and her mom had it. By the way, I lost my mom to diabetes. I lost her mom to Alzheimer's, which is type 3 diabetes. By the way, for diabetics who start having memory loss and they're getting forgetful, I'm not saying you have Alzheimer's, but please realize that 100% of Alzheimer's patients can't regulate blood sugar. That's eventually where that leads to. So it's in my genes, right? It's in my genes. Well, we all have genes. And I always tell my patients, genes are like light switches. We all have light switches in our house, right? Well, once those light switches get turned on, then they're going to stay on until somebody shuts them off. That's what's epigenetics. Epigenetics is a field of science that helps turn off genes, right? If you're Latino, you're Latino, right? You're not going to turn those genes off, but you may be susceptible to it because of certain things that you're exposed to, which are blocking the what? Doorway. It's as simple as this. We just need to figure out what's blocking the doorway. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I hope you can just take that. I hope you can take that really what this disease is a cellular disease. Something's blocking the doorway. Remember that and remember this. Because if you only remember one thing, please remember this. Diabetes is preventable, treatable, and absolutely reversible. Absolutely. Every single day in our office. I always joke about it. We should get one of those like bells. Patient comes in, shows us their blood work, 5.8, 5.5. Right? Now some of you are sitting down right now and you're thinking, it has to have been a fancy pill, or it's got to be a fancy diet, right? Right? It's got to be some kind of secret. It's not. It's just figuring, how should I put it? Anybody like puzzles? Great. Patients are puzzles. Patients are puzzles. Every single patient is different. What we need to do is figure out why you got diabetes and what's blocking the doorway and eliminate the thing that's in front of the doorway. Some of you are looking at me and like, it can't be that easy. It's that easy. At this problem, when we look at it like just a simple check engine light. And what do? We got the simple check engine light. We go to the doctor's office and they're going to give us that metformin. And that metformin makes the light go away for a little bit. Then all of a sudden that darn light comes back on. So what do we got to do? Well, now we got to take metformin and glipizide. Oh, good. We don't see the light anymore. Right? Darn light came back on again. And we got to take another what? Another prescription. What we don't realize is this. This problem is as complicated as that. That's your body. But we keep trying to manage and control this disease looking at it like this. It's no simpler than saying this. It's basically like you should just pull over your car and cut the light. This way you don't see it anymore. Right? But it's as complicated as this. So we're going to talk about this. Here's the really secret. Ready? I want you to write this down. Remember how I mentioned to you the word hormone? Correct? Okay, this is a secret with how you reverse diabetes. 2-hydroxyestradiol 17-beta. Write that down because I'm going to take this off the slide just in a second. There it is. This is the secret. Yeah, you guys missed it. Did you get that down? You didn't get that down? 2-hydroxy? Let's go back to this. I tried. See, this is my dad humor, by the way. So see this page right here? I know it's super hard to read. That is 1/10 of all the hormones and enzymes that help your body regulate blood sugar. 1/10. 1/10. So when we talk, that looks really complicated, right? That looks like that, right? When we look at this, that's us just looking at A1C and fasting blood sugar. You follow me what I'm trying to give you as an example, an analogy? That is figuring out what's causing the problem in the first place. Once you do that, then that's how you get rid of this problem. 2-hydroxyestradiol 17-beta, that's just one of many. That's 1/10 of all the hormones and enzymes that help you regulate blood sugar. Good news, I know them all. Right? Why? Because I didn't know them back then. I wish I did. She'd still be around. So let's talk about this. You were all diagnosed as having a blood sugar problem. They call it type 2 diabetes, right? And just to dispel this, because sometimes I hear it, if you're taking insulin, you're not a type 1 diabetic, right? Unless you were born with a genetic defect that makes you a type 1 diabetic, right? Because sometimes people are like, oh, I'm on insulin, I'm type 1. You're still type 2. It's just your A1C is so elevated that they had to put you on insulin. But whatever reason, however long ago, you were diagnosed as having diabetes, and they did that by checking your what? A1C and your fasting blood sugar. That's all they're looking at, right? I mean, sure, they're looking at cholesterol, some triglycerides, some things like that. But for the most part, this is what they're looking for when it comes to diabetes. We already talked about, this is just review. They told you to take your prescription, diet, exercise, and lose some what? Wait, if you do that for a period of time, your blood sugar, which was elevated, is going to go where? Down. But as soon as you change one of those, guess what happens? It goes right back up. I'm going to give you an example. I had a doctor sitting in one of these seats that you're sitting in right now. They're always here. I don't ask for you to raise your hands. Doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners. I know you're in the group, okay? So he was sitting down, and when he found out he was a diabetic, his A1C was an 11. An 11. Talk about putting the fear of God in him, right? So what did he do? Started taking prescriptions, started dieting, started exercising 6 days a week, and he got his A1C from an 11 down to a 6. And he thought he was good. Now, he still took his prescriptions because you know you got to manage it, right? Manage it and control it. So he still took his prescriptions. He still dieted. He's still watching those carbs, right? Got to watch out those carbs, right? Those darn carbs, they're evil, right? And he was doing what? Exercising just as much. And then what happened was his A1C went back up, but it went up to a 9. And that's where he was sitting in the room. For some of you that remember this, and I'm showing my age, remember that old V8 moment? Yes. He had a V8 moment when he was sitting down, when he heard that diabetes is a cellular disease, and he said, oh my gosh, it took me back to my biochemistry class. Something's blocking the doorway that's not allowing my body to use the blood sugar. Because I'm dieting, I'm exercising, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do, and how come my A1C is going back up? Did I lose anybody here? Because that was really important. So let's try to figure out his problem. If you have a blood sugar problem, which we've talked about, hormones and enzymes make your blood sugar go up and down. Fair enough? So the next thing you should be asking yourself is, well, what makes those hormones and enzymes? What makes that 2-hydroxyestradiol 17-beta, right? Your brain, your thyroid gland. I'll tell you right now, sitting in a room right now this size, I guarantee you 20 to 30% of you have a thyroid problem that's causing your diabetes. But they don't check. Adrenal glands, liver, gut, immune system, pancreas, inflammation, infections. Let's talk about immune system. Some of you right now in the room, you have an autoimmune disease. Rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, fibromyalgia. You ever hear of any of these conditions? Not realizing that your autoimmune disease actually caused your what? Your diabetes. Your autoimmune disease is blocking the what? Doorway. Your thyroid is blocking the what? The doorway. Your pancreas, inflammation, infections, endotoxins, biotoxins. My grandmother used to love this movie. It was called The King and I. Anybody remember that movie? Yes. Okay, remember Yul Brynner? Yes. Man, if I lose my hair, I hope I look that good. Right? Remember how he used to stand there and he would go, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Did you know, when it comes to diabetes, you think that there's only 2 types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. Tonight I already told you there's type 3, which is Alzheimer's. There's type 1.5, which is autoimmune. And there's about another 27. But if you're not checking what's blocking the doorways, then all you're left with is really 2. And what do you do with those 2? Diet, exercise, lose weight. How's that working out? Not so good. So to help patients, we got to figure out what are all the hormones and enzymes that are making your blood sugar do what? Go up and down. By the way, that doctor, we found out he had a biotoxin. He had taken a cross-country trip in an RV that was full of mold. Many, many years ago. Isn't that interesting? What was blocking the doorway? The mold. You think to yourself, wow, really? Yes. Guess what? As soon as you figure out what's locking the door and you unlock the door, guess where his blood sugar went? Right back down. So how do we do it? I already told you. Right? It's all the et ceteras. Did I do a good Yul Brynner right there? Right? We got to check all the et cetera. So how do we do it? We do testing. We look at every single patient different. Why? Because you're all different. No offense. You all come in different sizes. You all have different problems. I always joke with patients, I love my work. You know why? It's always different. Every single day, someone's got something different. It's never the same work. Yes, we're working on patients who have diabetes, but every single one is different. So what do we need to do? We need to figure out why you have diabetes. What caused your diabetes? You remember how I said most of you thought that this problem was what you put in your mouth? Right? Listen, if you're a diabetic, should you be eating a gallon of ice cream every single night? Of course not. You didn't need to come here tonight and hear that. Right? So, does what you put in your mouth affect your blood sugar? Absolutely. But it didn't cause it. Remember all those skinny diabetics that are running around? Yep. Right? How about this? I'll even tell you this right now. Some of you have really tried dieting, right? You ate a big salad, right? And the next morning you woke up and you were proud of yourself and you said, I'm finally going to check my blood sugar. I haven't checked it in months. And you check it and you're like, gosh darn it, it's 250. There was salmon on that salad. I don't like salmon. You're like, that's the healthiest thing I've eaten in a while. And you're like, what? And then the next day you're like, you know what, I'm going to have a burger. And it's like 100. You're like, what? I should just eat burgers. So let's talk about this. When the testing that we do, we have to look at you individually. We got to look at blood, we got to look at urine, we got to look at hormone testing, we got to look at enzyme testing. But one of the things that we need to look at is food. Who likes food here? I do. Too many people walk around and they live to eat versus not realizing that we eat to live. But let's go back to eating because I love talking about eating. Who likes avocados? Okay, who really, really likes avocados? Okay, I'm going to pick you, and I'm going to pick you. Okay, you guys are going to arm wrestle. Whoever wins the arm wrestle can have avocados. Okay, he loves avocado. He's like, I'm ready, right? So I want you to think about this. We know that avocados are healthy fats, right? Now, you may have something as being a diabetic called a food intolerance. Food intolerance, what is that? Is that like a food allergy? It's not a food allergy. It's called a food intolerance. When you're a diabetic, your body looks at food, and sometimes it will look at food and it will think it's foreign, and it's going to make antibodies. I'm not going to bore you in the details, but your body produces a certain antibody, and it actually raises your blood sugar up. Huh. So for you, you might be thinking, man, I'm following that keto diet, and that keto diet says I can have as many avocados as I want. You're eating the avocados, and you're like, man, my wife makes the best guacamole in the whole world. I got to make sure that I eat it, right? So we do a blood test. And it's a very specialized blood test. Bad news, my friend. You're following that keto diet, right? Because it's the new fad, right? And that is not good for you. You can have as much as you want, though. You don't have an intolerance. High five. That's right. Right? How about this? Who likes strawberries? Okay. We'll say you again, and we'll say this lovely young lady up front. I'm not going to ask you to arm wrestle because she'd kick your butt. Okay? We do the same test. She can have as many strawberries as she wants, but we find out that you have an intolerance and you can't have strawberries. So I want to be really, really clear about this. When I work with patients, most of my patients will actually tell me they're eating more food than they ever have. Ever. But now they know what to eat. Because there are certain healthy foods, I guarantee you right now you're walking around and you think they're healthy, but they're not healthy for you. Right? Now, am I going to test you for soda? No, because you're a diabetic and you shouldn't be drinking soda. Okay? All right? So, but I want to think about it this way. How I help my patients, 30% is with food, is figuring out the right foods. 70% is figuring out what caused this thing in the first place and what's blocking the doorways, and then giving you certain things to help heal your body. So let's talk about healing your body. Some of the things that we need to do over here. It says functional stool analysis. Actually, we've changed that now. We actually do it with urine. Do we need to look at your digestive system? Absolutely. Did you know 90% of your immune system comes from where? Your gut. But most of you are like, man, I don't feel anything in my stomach. I got nothing wrong with my stomach. You go to your doctor's office, they'd never check. You know why? You haven't been out of the country. Why would we check? You don't have H. pylori. Not realizing that if you have an infection inside of your gut, which you don't have to have any aches and pains, your blood sugars may be doing what? Going up and down. The whole point that I'm mentioning this is what I tell my patients. If I accept you as a patient, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold you by your feet and I'm going to shake you. Whatever comes out, we need to figure out why. This is generally what I tell my patients. And I tell them, I will test you more thoroughly than you ever have been. Why? Because you deserve it. To figure out what's blocking the doorways, we need to figure out why you're different than the next diabetic. You can have a husband and wife. You can have a brother and a sister. You can have a mom and a dad. Completely different reasons why they're diabetics. Completely different. But what are we doing? We're walking around thinking this is a problem with what? Food. Food. I'm going to say it again. This is not a fancy diet. It's not an exercise program. And generally speaking, I don't tell my patients, you need to lose weight. Now, I will tell you this, across the board, my patients do lose weight. Why? Because when you're a diabetic, you hold on to what? Wait, did you know if you're on insulin, do you know what happens? It makes your body store fat. You know you have a blood sugar problem that makes your body convert sugar into what? Fat, cholesterol, triglycerides. Really hard to lose weight when your body's what? Making fat. Some of you who are diabetic, you know that that's hard to lose weight, right? And you're wondering, man, I keep eating those salads, right? I keep eating rabbit food. I don't know why I can't lose any weight. So what do we typically see? I'm going to say this boldly and proudly. It is very rare I see a diabetic patient fail anymore in my office, if I do my job the right way in the beginning. In the beginning, that wasn't the case. But this is generally what I see with most of my patients. They reduce and eliminate the need for medication, not just the diabetic medication. We're talking about the high blood pressure medicines, the high cholesterol medicines. You ever hear of gabapentin, the nerve pain medicines? Anybody have neuropathy in the room? Right? Across the board. Why? Because when you figure out what's causing this thing in the first place, the dependency, the need for the medicine goes what? Goes away. You heard one of our patients actually mention she was able to get off insulin in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Why? Because we figured out what was causing it in the first place. Lose weight without exercising. Most of my patients come in and they say, oh, I want to lose weight. Okay, great. But if you want a fancy weight loss program, go join Jenny Craig. But our patients lose weight across the board. Some patients over 100 pounds under care. Easily. And then yet they say, I'm eating more now than I ever have. But they know what to eat now. And they can eat as much as they want. How about this one? They increase their energy, their vigor, their vitality. They start feeling like they used to be, like the person that they were. Why does that happen? Because the doorways are open and the glucose is going where? Inside the cells. Does that make sense? How about this one? Reduce and eliminate the risk for complications of diabetes. I've been at this for a very, very long time. And it's tough to see diabetics come into my practice. It's tough to see diabetics come in and they've lost a limb. It's tough to see diabetics, a 38-year-old, come into my office with an eye patch. Why? Because he had lost his eyesight. Had a 45-year-old teacher. 45-year-old teacher lost 2 digits in her right foot before I met her. And this is the story that she told me. She said, I was in the shower, I was getting ready, but I was running late. I was running late to school, and I was trying to get ready. She had neuropathy in her feet. By the way, when you have neuropathy in your feet, it's everywhere. It's systemic. This stuff just doesn't affect your feet. It's going everywhere. So she said she felt her numbness and tingling a little bit more that day, but she was in a rush. Following day, same thing happened. This time she's looking down, and 2 of her digits turned completely black. Just like that. Just like that lady, that video that we showed you. She said she was fine one day, and then she wasn't. That gentleman who I told you that lost a leg, I think he was, don't quote me, he was either 42 or 45. He lost his leg in 2 days. It had turned black, and then lost it. Had another patient come into the practice, construction worker. This was before I met him. He had lost his foot, and he lost his foot because in his boot was a nail and he didn't realize it. And it was rubbing against what? His foot, causing a sore, and he lost his foot. These people are no different than my mom. These are people who were trying to what? Diet, exercise, lose weight, trying to do everything that they were being told and not realizing what was causing the problem in the first place. Reduce and eliminate the risk for early death. That's really what we try to do in our practice. Why? Because I lost her at 54. That's too early. If I had lost her at 64, 74, even 84, I still think that's too early. Oldest patient I've ever worked with was 104. Right? Oldest patient, 104. So when I say this, and I say it proudly, it is very rare that I ever see a diabetic patient fail. I couldn't say that in the beginning. Because in the beginning, can I borrow your hand? In the beginning, if you were a diabetic and you had a pulse, I was going to take you as a patient. Right? I was on fire. I wanted to save every diabetic in the world. And then I realized, you diabetics are squirrely people. Right? You're squirrels. Squirrely. Why? Because you look at this disease one of 2 ways. It's just a little nuisance. Those people tend to never, ever get better. They don't. Because they don't think it's a big deal. People who generally get better realize that their health has to be their number one priority. They say, wait a minute, I have a disease that could affect the quality of my life. Not only my life, but the people that I care for. Diabetes still affects our family. Do you know why? Because she's not around. No offense, but I think our life is meant to what? Collect, not money, but memories. I can't do a good job sharing how she was to them. I could spend all night talking about befores and afters. We have a patient from our office who felt convicted to say a little bit about his story. Do me a big favor, big hand of applause. Mr. Don Woods.
Hello, folks. I'm nervous, though. I'm sorry. When I seen Dr. Oz talking to that lady, I never want to hear that. Hear it. I took my daddy there three times a week, 8 hours a day. He died from complications with diabetes. He was blind and 67 years old. I'm 63 years old, and I was diagnosed 15 years ago. I was heading the same way. The doctor said something about genes. Well, my grandpa had his leg taken off. My father's father, my dad's two brothers, both had legs taken off. So 15 years of going to the doctor and doing what the doctor said, because that's what I was taught to do, the doctor finally said to me, I was on 5 medicines, 5, just for diabetes, plus blood pressure, plus cholesterol. And he said, you're going to have to take insulin now. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm gonna beat this. So I found Doc, and I didn't believe anything because I've seen so much in my family. And I told the doctor, my family doctor for 15 years, that I had found Doc, and he told me, once you're diabetic, you're always diabetic. And I said, you're fired. I've had enough. I've had enough. I said, I'm going to do this whether you like it or not, because I have a choice, and I'm going to make a change. So I walked out of there, and 6 months from then, I went back in. I was at 10.2, my A1C. Doc got me down to 5.8. I lost 87 pounds, eating more food than I ever ate in my life. He found out through his comprehensive testing what was wrong with me. Now, I don't know if that was what was wrong with my dad, but I know that's what was wrong with me, because I'm off of medicine for a year. I haven't taken anything. And for 15 years, I did nothing but take the medicine they told me to take. And I did everything they told me to do, only to get worse and worse and get heavier and heavier. I was up to 307 pounds. I lost 87 pounds. My feet hurt. I had neuropathy so bad, I couldn't feel. I couldn't wear nothing but tennis shoes. I kept my boots on. I'm ready to go. I'm so thankful that I took a chance to make a change. And I found this doctor, and I'm so blessed because it's made a difference in my world. I have grandkids. I want to be around for a while. I said my daddy died at 67 years old. I'm 63. And I can't believe now what I'm dealing with. I got a little brother. He's 11 months younger than me. And he's in Tennessee. And I'm going to get him on a plane and get him here to see the doctor, because I got to help him. I went back to see him, and he's on insulin, and he thinks, oh, we're going out to eat dinner tonight. Let me take a shot. And I'm trying to be the big brother and try to help him get to the right place. He helped me get to the right place, and I'm here, and I'm here to tell you that you still have a chance to make a change. And it's done it for me. I've seen it through my family. And yes, sir, I got my boots on. Yeah, I see that. Thank you. Very nice.
Don, thank you so much. God bless. Big round of applause for Don. It's not easy getting in front of people you haven't met before. Don's amazing. I think all of our patients are amazing. You know, Don was speaking, and he told me about his doctor, and he didn't get a chance to finish his story. But when he went back and he told his doctor, look at where my blood sugar levels are, because he wanted to give the doctor some information, and the doctor said, oh, great. I'll give that doctor a call. So his doctor said that. The last two other patients, this is what made me think of it. The other two patients were non-diabetic. One was at 14.7, dropped it down, I think 5.6. The other one was over 9, down to 6. Anyway, long story short, all of their doctors said, I'm going to give them a call. Guess how many called? In 20 years, guess how many have called? None. I want to say this in the right kind of context. There are amazing doctors that are out there who went into medicine to help people, but they get busy. That next patient is right behind them, right? They think everything is a what? A fancy diet. It's a fancy fad. It's not. Don's eating more now than he ever has because now we figured out what he can eat. But that's only part of the issue, right? 70% is figuring out what caused this in the first place. There's no fad cures for anything. There's just good old-fashioned figuring out what's going on. Does that make sense?
Those of you who have been a diabetic for a long period of time, for those of you who've been a diabetic a year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it might be, for those of you who have been frustrated, wondering why you haven't gotten this information, I have a special opportunity for you. For those of you who have watched this video today, the opportunity is this, to come into my office for a one-on-one consultation. And that consultation for you viewing this video today is $37. I know for some of you, you really feel that you're convicted that you want to take advantage of this opportunity. And what I want to do is I want to make things a little bit easier for you and kind of let you know who should take advantage of this opportunity. If you know right now that you're just sick and tired of being sick and tired, you've been a diabetic for a long period of time and you want to take things into your own hands, then that's who this opportunity is for. If you know right now that your health is absolutely your number one priority, then that's who this opportunity is for. So I also want to share who probably shouldn't take advantage of this opportunity. And probably the biggest thing that I would say is if you know right now, after spending all this time watching this video, your health really isn't your number one priority, then this opportunity isn't for you. Here are the appointment rules for those of you who want to take advantage of the special opportunity that we have today. The first is this: if you are married, if you live with someone, if you have a spouse, a partner, I do need to meet with them. And the reason why I share this with you up front is not to make things difficult for you, but I've just known after so many years of doing this type of work, the two things that I always see that are most consistent with people who reverse their diabetes is, number one, their health really is their number one priority, and number two, they've got a good support system around them. So if you do have a spouse, if you have a partner, a live-in person that you live with, they do need to come in for that appointment. You know, something I mentioned beforehand, and I showed this slide, I wish I knew then what I know now. Do I think she'd still be around? Yes. For those of you who feel like you're convicted that you want to make a change as far as your good health is concerned, I look forward to meeting with you in person. To take advantage of this special opportunity today and take yourself out of that high-risk category and reverse your type 2 diabetes, then scroll down below and sign up for that appointment.
Hello, my name is Claudia. I was diagnosed with diabetes December 21st, 2018, and I met Dr. Botello about a month later on 1/29/2019, and since the moment that I met him, I believe that he can actually change my life. Well, when I was diagnosed with diabetes, my A1C was at 14.7. Actually, it was greater than 14.7. And 2 months later, after joining Dr. Botello, my A1C dropped to 5.6. I do not have diabetes right now. I am in the process of dropping all the meds that I've been taking for diabetes, and it's just an awesome feeling. So those of you that come across Dr. Botello, I highly recommend that you guys take your time to join him, and you can reverse diabetes.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Beverly. I came to him because I am a diabetic and my A1C was at a 13. And I would get it down a little bit at a time, but not significant enough to get me out of the danger zone. I wanted to let you know that since I have been on the program, my A1C is down to a 7.9. And I feel very confident that I will get it down even lower. I just feel like my energy level has really boomed since this program started for me. And I would say when I started out, I was very lazy. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sleep all the time. I felt tired, no energy. Now I do have a lot of energy, and I would say from a 1 to 10, I am at a 9. I feel like I can accomplish anything. I smile and I laugh a lot more. I enjoy my family more. I'm doing more outings and a lot more shopping, which is fun. And Dr. Patello and his staff have been really great. And if anyone feels that they do need guidance on trying to help them with their being a diabetic and trying to get their levels back to normal, then Dr. Patello's office would be the first place I would start.
I'm Jerry Tedder. I'm 77 years old. My blood sugars were running above 200. I was on 2 different medicines, glipizide and metformin. I have been able to eliminate the glipizide 100%, and I'm reduced my metformin down to half. So it's been very good. One of the real benefits of the program is it's helped me determine the proper way to eat, to monitor what I eat and identify those foods that drive my sugar up. And of course the staff has been very supportive, and Dr. Botello has been wonderful. It's just been a great experience. I can recommend it for anybody that wants to try to get their blood sugar under control.
So hi, my name's Deb, and I've lost 30 pounds. When I met him, I felt like I was on my last leg. I was so tired. I was just exhausted every day when I get home from work. I didn't want to do anything. It was awful. And now my energy level has shot way up, and it's fantastic to have this energy back. I'm really pleased with it. My clothes are fitting me better. I feel better. I feel younger and stronger and healthier. And that's what I'm telling myself. I'm not only getting better health, but I'm getting younger. And it's a beautiful thing. And these are great people. They're so helpful. They're always there for you and walk you along step through step and take good care of you.
My name is Denise Simmons. When I got on the program, my A1C was, I think it was about 8 point something. And I was on blood pressure medicine. And since I've been on this program, my A1C is now 6.0. My blood pressure medicine has been cut in half. And the most important thing is I feel better than I've felt in years. I'm actually happy. I've been taken off of my Traceba altogether. My blood pressure medicine, I used to take 2 pills a day, and now I'm on a half a pill a day. So where normally doctors have you increase medication, this is the first doctor that I've ever had where I decreased medication. And like I said, the most important thing is the happiness. I've got heart disease, diabetes, it runs in my family. I'm one of 10 kids, and all of us have heart disease and diabetes, but my levels are better than anyone in my family. So as far as any recommendation, I would say run to Dr. Patello. He has changed my